Oh,
That
that's
last
okay,
little bit
different.
from that straight leg to really posting that leg on the way up. Yeah. Or make it easier to get into the elbow too. I would that posted leg. Okay, next piece. Anything I want before that. I think that makes the most sense. Just go right into that
Yeah,
piece.
'cause that's supposed to suck my legs. It's my legs. Yeah.
Yeah.
It smokes my tuna interior. It's
Yeah.
probably
Our nose on the outside too, yeah. Block position. Okay, now we're going to start to implement a lunge matrix, which is essentially we want to lunge in all the directions.
okay.
And we'll start to just implement that. Okay, first one though, we're going to segment it in, and then eventually we'll have it all as one kind of thing. But we're going to start.
I notice when you come out to the back, you're out a little bit. Like you're not dry. It seems like you're stepping out instead of straight back.
Just with the hips
Okay.
for the most part. We're going to be going that way for another lunge variation. So if you're a little bit wider than hip width, totally fine here.
Okay.
And just with the locomotion, it's going to be more of a balance challenge. So if you've got a little wider base to support, it would just give you a little bit more steadiness. And I want you to be as soft as you can. You're stepping on a friction device and you don't want it to break, crack, break.
Crack. Cracky crack.
You can go a little bit wider in that back foot. Inside hip width. That is still inside hip width, but take that, that's fine. Just try not to get too narrow.
Interesting.
Just because you're wide out there, just as a reference point, keep going. Don't try to change it. Like this here.
Yep.
You can see that back foot after this. Really
Wow.
goes in.
So that's my back foot?
Yeah, this is
Shit.
So that's how we do that. So it's wide. Actually, back really.
So I
As you
really,
see that when I come down, up here my foot looks like it's outside my foot.
yeah.
Down. This. Right. There, yeah. Now it's like good. Now see, now look at that. You're right in line with this door. There's no other thing. This.
I look
Step all over the way. The goal for you is to not try to go as wide as the front step and make sure you're wide enough with the back step. Not right or wrong, again, just mindful of, there's something, there's a pattern here that's been unconsciously imprinted on the nervous system. And so let's just be conscious about it. Rather than trying to make change of it, just be aware, where is that foot landing every time? That's where that front foot was. That foot just wanted to go more of the deal, you step it out a little bit. Yeah, same thing, other leg up that. it doesn't seem as, it's not as bad. It was more like this, now it's like this. And again, not a big deal, but just noteworthy that
Are you noticing
there's a difference between
that I have a hard time picking up clean from here?
No, I'm not noticing anything other really than the
That?
change in the gait.
I noticed.
Competence is going to improve with repetition. Those little details about am I soft ninja, am I not wobbly, all of that is just practice. The motor pattern is more what I'm interested in. Is there's a rut in the dirt road where the wagon wheel naturally seems to slip into, which is front foot out, back foot in when you're stepping. And again, it's not right or wrong, it's just something, well, that's interesting, there's a rut there. What do we do with that information? Nothing as of now other than aware that there's a rut there. Like, try not to just unconsciously fall in the rut over and over. It's like when you see the natural wear in the pavement on the road, and it rains and
Yeah.
it pools in those natural low spots.
Yeah.
What do you do when you drive? You drive half so you're on the middle part where it doesn't get driven on and the outside part where it doesn't get driven on as much. You're just trying to stay out of those ruts. Same kind of idea here. Just be aware of the ruts, and then it's not that they're wrong or that you got to stay out of them completely, but just be mindful that they're there and try to not go in that rut every single time. Unless you're intentionally consciously aware that you're doing that on purpose for some kind of reason. Other than just, I don't know, it's just what I do. Same kind of idea now, instead of front to back, we're going to go crossover lunge, which is a diagonal lunge where this foot is crossing over, its name, the front leg. It's not as much of a sideways lateral lunge as it is a reverse lunge. It's really just a reverse lunge where my back foot now is ghosted about 1 foot width away from on the other side of my lead leg. You don't want it to go too much further that way, because what the intent of this is to translate this femur bone this way. What's that going to do? Well, all this glute tissue stuff that's here is going to get stretched out here and then be required to contract to pull your hip bone back medial to your aligned up position. So all we're doing is loading into this butt cheek more, greater trochanter, pushing out into the glute medius and lateral aspect of the glute maximus. So right into that outside cheek stuff. So that way we're getting more stretch on the glute and then more full range of motion to contract that glute and bring me from lateral back to medial. Okay, so that's crossover lunge. You don't have to tip, but you notice how I'm even accentuating that a little bit to push out into that hip a little bit more. Because again, if we go this way, it translates the femur bone this way. If we go this way, it translates the pelvis up that way, which is just going to be another complement to stretching into that lateral line of stuff more. So we're rotating this femur bone to push out into it, and we're dropping this pelvis, so that way all of this glute tissue stuff is going this way and this way, putting the most stretch on all that tissue. You don't have to get carried away with the tip, but just note this side of my pelvis is a little higher than this one, almost naturally from being in this half kneeling position. But if we scoot it this way and kind of tip into it, now I'm really, you can see that little hip of the shift of the hip just a little bit. Now I'm accentuating that even more. So I'm pushing into that glute even more. So it's just a bit more glute focused, lateral glute focused lunge variation than a reverse lunge. Other than that, not much of a difference there, right? It's really just my reverse lunge, but I'm just pushing into this
You
side
want
butt
them to do
cheek
that pace?
a little bit more. No, I'm just demoing. We'll get a pull, add the piece. Next piece is lateral lunge. Okay, so I'm already pushing myself laterally when I'm coming out of the bottom of that. So it's natural then to add the lateral lunge onto this movement, since I'm already going in that direction with this leg. I just continue that motion into my lateral lunge. So now I'm stretching the other side of this hip via the adductors and loading now the lateral aspect of this glute in a bit of a different way because my femur is medial to my knee rather than the crossover lunge where the pelvis and the end of the femur, greater trochanter, are lateral to the knee. So I'm still getting glute, but it's more this stuff rather than this stuff. But it works really nicely to push off and get on that other side. So now I'm working a lot of that frontal plane stability system that we don't get a lot of. And it just, to me, makes sense that I'm opening up and stretching the other side of the hip to counter the crossover lunge. Okay, so again, the biggest takeaway that I want you to think about is just light ninja stepping, control, balance stepping, rather than like perfect angles or anything like that. Take into account all the stuff about the shifting of the hip to load the lateral glute more, but don't overthink that part. Just 100 reps of them and you'll naturally feel what I'm looking for. Perfect already on the crossover lunge. Lateral lunge, you know that one pretty well. When you come out of that crossover lunge, really accentuate the contraction of the glute stuff to send you that way. There you go, yeah, big push off with the left leg, left glute to send you over to the right into that lateral lunge. And get tall coming out of that crossover lunge. Push up and then softly come over and land, but get tall in that left leg first. There, you felt that difference, right? More glute contraction.
It's also back to those in the pool.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Which way to work on for a long time.
Yeah, and reverse lunge is a kickstand assisted rear foot elevated split squat back there. Yeah,
Well, you know when it feels like it. Yeah. That perfect up distance with even more emphasis on sending yourself laterally, even though it's like a slow motion. Yes. Good. It's that same kind of idea as pushing up and laterally when you're coming back to the left as well. And then stop and then go to the other side. Okay. So awkward on that side. This coming back.
Who knows? Yeah. Diagnosis irrelevant to
Just tell me to say
the end result we desire, which is just improvement in competence. How do we do that? Fucking 100 more free throws.
Yep.
Because we know if we're not good at it now, but it's doable, we're right at that point where challenge is skill. Challenge is just above skill. We really focus. There, but as we fatigue, we're coming back down. That's exactly where we want to be. Too much risk, too much distance, not enough good repetition, likely compensation. Skill is above challenge, too easy, no learning, apathy, decreasing adherence, be a habit formation. not a good.
Thanks for helping me sum up my day yesterday.
You want to be right there. Sometimes a little better, you know, like the way that I like to see it, the challenge skill. Its challenge goes like this, back down, up here, back down. We want to get to a point where we fail every once in a while. If we're not going there, we're not stretching ourselves to grow. We're not creating that stimulus that actually makes us expand and become more zone. The adaptation is the we can actually get stronger each time. As a result, we can hang out healthier too long, burn out, overtraining, we can hang out down here too long, apathy, undertraining, undertraining. So it's like suck at some stuff, do that early in the workout when you're fresh, and as you fatigue, go more to then the stuff that you know really well. You know, that's just kind of like a motor learning game that we're playing here.
Yeah,
which is
my favorite bed game.
that's why we do, yeah, do your hardest tricks, do your most intense stuff in the beginning, do your basic runs at the end, the stuff that you know you can do, less minds, and just let the body shoot the free throws at the practice.
They're the opposite of yesterday.
Yeah, you want to be freshest, you want the nervous system to be freshest, and be the most physically intense or economically complex. It's a complex skill or an intense task. Do those in the beginning of the freshest. Okay, next one, last one. This is two that I have never done this together like what we just did for the other two, but it's two more of the lunge variations. Number one, co-stack lunge. So we're going to, can we circle the one on this side so you can see that foot opening? It's a step into a reverse lunge, but we're turning to face the pelvis 90 degrees as we sit down into that lateral but externally rotated squat or lunge. So we're here and then returning to our front position. Step away, open up toes. Yeah, exactly. Okay, now we're going to take that, we're going to combine it with a, gosh, what's the name for this one? This is probably actually more karaoke lunge, okay? So we're going to step the front leg across, and now this is essentially relative to the back leg being behind. This is my crossover lunge, right, on the back leg, but I'm much more 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock than I am 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock like I am on the crossover lunge. The goal here is to get that back knee to come down right inside the outside of that front heel. I can still get full foot on the ground here. I'm not overloading by going forward and lifting the heel up. I'm actually trying to load this glute more than I am this knee. Keep the heel down, push back. So you're getting the same kind of stimulus as the crossover lunge, but more rotational loading rather than tipping. You can't really tip your pelvis down on the right and lift up on the left here if you notice that. But you can rotate the rib cage more, which gives you more relative rotation in the pelvis, torquing up that stretch here. So the goal on this one is prayer hands, stay totally square with your rib cage as you rotate your pelvis underneath you, which is going to feel like an active rotation to the left to help to resist rotation to the right, because the rib cage is going to want to follow the pelvis. You don't want it to. So I'm actually going to push my hand. I like to have the hand on the center line because then you can see, am I rotating or not? Easy cue. But also pushing this way will help to brace you in the opposite direction so you don't give when you do the twist. So I'm pushing to the left. Notice my back muscles are engaging here. I'm engaging this stuff almost like a row action as I come down. That's going to give me all of that. I push back, and I open, co-set. Boom. A big step across, far enough to be able to easily get my knee all the way down without running into that leg. Open to the other side. Big step across, twist the rib cage in the opposite direction to create more relative stretch on the tissue of the hip. Yep. 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 Twist left, twist left, twist left, twist left. There we go. Now, before you step back, this foot is already prepped to be lifted up without any weight on this leg. If you were stepping and then lifting, I want you to be ready in that Cossack position before you lift.
It's the same. When I come back here.
When you're going that way, yeah, already be ready for that Cossack. Instead of this, 1, 2, I want it to be one movement.
Oh.
Okay,
Got it.
already, that's already set and done. It's just the landing on that left leg. I'm just forcing you to use the right leg less because I can trust yourself.
Finish? I don't know.
More than 5 lessons.
Is that a bad ankle? Okay. So, reverse. Ooh, she got weird.
That side's not really other leg. Yeah, right. Thanks. Good back. Yep.
It's weird.
So, a couple warm-up moves to consider would be the strider. With the hip slide would be nice to open up that lateral and medial.
The strider is, yeah, my little. Okay.
Side to side with the hip lift and the wide leg lift.
Okay.
That's going to get all of the aspects of the posterior side and a little bit of the high hip flexor release when you're in the actual strider position.
Yes.
In the front, that
It's
trailing.
a very nice one. I agree.
That trailing
Sorry,
one is
thank
nice.
you. My brain's
The quad is the only thing that we're not quite as much actively getting a release on here. If we wanted to be fancy and throw it in at the same time, what I would say we do is for the strider, probably do it from the side, which is angle to see. Okay, cool, yeah. It's probably Jocelyn. I told you to come get her stuff. She's gonna handle that soft stuff. We're here in the strider. What I almost would
Even as a warm-up?
yeah, what I would say is we hang out here and just mobilize before you start your strider. So you can come up half kneeling here too. Now we're just getting more opening in that hip. We're gonna come back and forth. What's up, baby?
I like your weird doom sticker. I got a good giggle out of that.
I can get you on if you want.
Betsy, Jocelyn, Betsy.
Nice to meet
meet
you.
Hang out, baby. Do whatever you want. If you come up here, there's going to be a little more quaddiness to it. If you come down here, we're putting more of that stretch on the high hip flexor. So you'll feel this more almost in front of the pelvis. You'll feel this more as you come up and back. and I pull the heel through the glute. Now I'm just getting more knee flexion, so I'm pulling on the bottom aspect of the thigh tissue. So
You think just go for it, I just feel how the spears on it.
oh yeah, it should be fine. And I mean, you can start here too,
Yeah.
and just be pushing down for some active tension in this quad stuff. Kind of doing this, and again, just the more we come forward, the more we pull up on this line. The more we come back, the more we're pulling down on this bottom line. So you're shifting the stretch from up here to down here, to up here to down
I
here.
need this, especially because of how much.
And that's what I'm thinking. That's why I'm like, we need to get some hip
I'm
extension.
really starting to feel it, like that over my
We need to get some low threshold hip extension, quad hip flexor, lengthening of your tensions in there. So this is the best way to start as just an easy warm up. If you remember going back, half kneeling hip flexor, hamstring.
Yep, I remember.
Same thing with the back leg. I'm just, instead of creasing into hip flexion to get this hamstring, you're about to get the hamstring on the next move anyway.
Yeah.
So you can just stay focused back here. This is level 1. And then you can just post this up and do the exact same mob in level 2. I like to cross because then you get a little more balance here by grabbing this. You give yourself a little more support. But I'm just hanging on with that back foot again. Stretch there. If you're feeling a great stretch already here, just drive down and lean back. Hell of a stretch. Take out the stretch via release the tension. Find the stretch by pushing down into the foot and leaning back and find the tension. This is a half kneeling version of a single leg version of camel pose, or even if you see it in a gym setting, the reverse Nordics, which I think we've done those before. Yeah. So yeah, it's just that
I'm like, which
regressed
we've done.
regressed mobilization of, but that's the progression that we move to, because that's still a mobility exercise in the sense that you're loading the tissues through a full range of motion by going back. It just becomes more of a strength exercise because you'll hit your threshold.
Like that.
Yep, but stretch back from the hip, push down into this foot hard to fire up the tension through this quad.
Okay, I feel it now, John. I feel it now. I'm not bored.
More trunk flexion. Don't let yourself lean in the spine. We want to lean from here
Fuck,
down.
fuck. Oh, fuck. Oh,
Yeah.
fuck. Okay, it's already.
Because now
It's
you're
already
like,
severe.
there it is. Now it's just little movements. Come forward to take the tension away. Push down into the back foot as you lean back and really work dog poop and dead bug. So that way we're not extending the spine, we're just focusing on extending the hip.
I feel
Which
it.
actually we're not even extending the hip. What we're doing is flexing at the knee.
I
But the
know.
flexing
Oh.
at the knee is the load that's taking this across the bottom here. So it can be quite a bit.
It
That's
is,
why.
but this is really good because I feel like what's fucking with my knee is the collateral ligament loss right now.
And this actually, especially when you grab back foot,
It just got a little. not
will,
crazy,
but
it's-
like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
there it is.
yeah. So yeah, I would say maybe we don't
This
even
is
go for the back foot yet.
fabulous.
I'll show you a trick.
Yeah,
This
I don't
is-
know if I can pull it up, John.
Well, this is the beauty of how we regress. Instead of grabbing the foot, go ahead and relax and lift. Okay. Uh-huh. And now I'm just.
Oh, that makes it way better.
Now, up one more time. Now you can see how we can just keep doing that. And now I'm just slowly increasing the degree of knee flexion. But now there's no balance issue. You don't have to hang out there. You can very easily gas pedal or brakes on the amount of force that you're
Yeah,
driving
this
down into the back
Feeling
foot.
way better in the
Right?
situation.
Because you can kind of wiggle into it a little bit and find that tension line.
This is fucking good for Betsy's leg.
Mhm.
Today is awesome.
Now, next level, contract, relax, pails and rails, right? What would you do for a pails rails here?
Is it this?
That would be the rails, regressive angle, pulling rails
And then
reverse.
pushing down and up?
Yeah, pails
Oh, I
push.
can't go up.
No, not up though. You're just pushing down. The body doesn't move. You're just
Oh,
pushing
just
down
resistance
into the
down,
foot, increases
push up,
tension.
push down, push up.
Yeah, so basically quad hamstring, quad hamstring, quad hamstring.
Oh my God.
And it doesn't have to be max effort, but push down into it and lean back a little bit and find your threshold of tension. And then come out and hammy, utilize, shake it out a little bit, lean back into it, squeeze, hold for 5 seconds. You're doing your own, yep, you're doing your own PNF.
I love it, John.
You're just doing contract, relax. You know, squeeze, hold for 5.
This is gold.
Push down into the foot, squeeze glute, find tension in the quad for 5, 4, 3, 2, slowly lean forward, take the tension away, and then noodle the hamstring a little bit. There you go, girl. Okay, and this leg already feels and looks a little bit better, so let's go 2 more inches up. You can just grab pillows and do another pillow. Okay, and until you can get to a bench, and now same thing. Pushing down, squeezing glute, and then hammy, trying to pull the heel away from whatever object you're pushing down. And now stay there and just play with that forward back lean, and you'll feel how it can shift. Shift it. What I want you to do is try to shift the tension from belly of the quad to high hip flexor, from belly of the quad to high hip flexor. And just see if you can lean forward, shoulder to knee. Bring yourself. Change that stretch just a little bit. Okay, so now I know where we're going to go with this exercise. We're going to start with the spine, and then we go into that position for the hip flexor quad. Yep. Then we go into the strider, yep. Hip slide. Yep. Then we go into the knee bridge walk. Okay. Then because now we're loading hamstring through lengthened position, kind of similar to what we're doing here, but in a more locomotive sense. And then single leg deadlift with the reach. Now we're loading hamstring under load from standing position. And then we go into the lunge sequence, forward, back, lateral crossover, perio lunge.
Quad load after all of them?
No, that's going to be after the spine, before the everything else. That's number 2. Number 1, spine. Yep. 3-way. Number 2, hip flexor quad right there. Number 3, strider, hip slide. Number 4, glute bridge walk out. Number 5, single leg deadlift with the reach. Number 6, forward reverse lunge. Number 7, lateral crossover lunge. Number 8, post-sap, perio lunge. Post-sap, perio. Of course, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's kind of in there.
It's so funny because the names, even the exercises, construct them so much. Because like I used to be like, I write it for you. How can you not remember the name? And like, I fucking have no idea what we're doing, bro. Because like I'm like digital shit, and he's like, oh, just go here and fucking do this API key. And I'm like,
right.
Okay. And then I'm like, rear foot elevated split squat. And I'm like, I get it. They have no idea the language of what that fucking means. So just send them the fucking video, dude. And yeah, you can even play. The nice thing about this position.
Because I'm realizing once I stood up that I felt this leg is doing better, but it's not in some ways because the ankle is really acting up on me. It's popping, and when I wake up in the morning, it's like the fascia, and then I have to like fight back in the morning. So doing this, once I stood up, I felt it going up. So maybe I need to wiggle in here.
Yeah, and that would be the next. I was gonna say hang squat. You know,
because that shit was really fucking good.
Going into this.
Yeah.
And now we're getting that line exactly what you're talking about.
It was amazing
here,
for me.
Here, switch over, here, here, here.
Okay.
Side angle, action. You know, that's just a side angle attraction.
It's sorting me right out.
Here. Now, this is one of my favorites, is going sideways with it. Going sideways. Oh, now I can get under the armpit. And open. Now I'm kind of going forward into that hip flexor line, but getting a lot of lateral bias. And because I'm opening my armpit, I'm even getting some pec in there. So I'm getting lateral / a little bit posterior aspect of the lat, getting the pec, and I'm getting a lot of this lateral anterior aspect of the
Yep.
hip flexor, high
Which
hip
is
flexor and stuff, yeah.
what's
And then when I
happening.
twist that way and push that way, now I'm getting all the way to the spine, posterior, lat, QL, all the way on the backside. So there's nothing off limits, just regionally where are you feeling it, and then noodle into a line of tension where you can get into that position. And then once you're there, the breath is what's going to downregulate and unwind the fascia so you can actually let gravity and tension push into and expand that space. But what I wanted to touch on here is this guy, right?
Yeah.
This is really nice because you get more out of the hamstring for sure, and there's a lot more balance, coordination, stability stuff going on.
What's your name?
This is split stance, spinal flexion and extension.
Okay. Yep.
Split stance, lateral flexion, split stance, rotation.
Perfect. I got it.
Okay, then we can regress and progress this position, because what's the goal of this position? Mobilize the spine in all three planes. Sagittal plane, frontal plane, transverse plane. However you do that doesn't matter. What I take people through is the sequence of going from all fours, because this is the most stable, this is the least complex of a skill for the nervous system to learn. Flexion, extension, child's pose, lateral flexion, there's frontal plane, thread the needle, transverse plane. There's your three. How do we progress it from here? We go half kneeling. Flexion, extension, lateral flexion,
I feel like I'm growing up
rotation.
so
You're
much.
learning, right? Yeah. Now I've graduated you to same exact thing. Oh, more balance now. Other than that, it's pretty much the
But
exact
it's
same.
really good.
And then what do we do from here is we progress to locomoting. We just add a step. Same thing here. We add the step. Okay, same thing here, we add the step. Now you'll note with the lunge matrix that you're doing, you're kind of doing all three of those locomotive pieces without adding the spine, because that's too much complexity. At first, we're focusing on emphasizing the legs. Let's get more reps down here, turn it into almost more of a strength stimulus, progressively overloaded stimulus where you get stronger and more coordinated. We make it a corrective exercise rather than just a mobilization. Plus, we're doing this in the beginning anyway, so we don't need to do that yet. Next phase, when the legs are doing good and they've got that down, and you've done this enough to where that feels comfortable, then we can take the lunge matrix out, and this is now your lunge matrix and your spinal 3D at the same time. So now we're just getting more efficient what you're doing with your time. I do these three every fucking workout. That's like the daily first thing no matter what, because you're taking as many joints as possible. I'm getting flexion, extension, flexion. It's global flexion and global extension. Global lateral flexion. I'm getting the most joints and tissues to go through their greatest range of motion in all three planes in 5 minutes, in 3 movements. You know? Super efficient for your time. Most bang for your buck. Those 3 exercises in that fashion, in my opinion, are the best you can do.
It's really exciting to start getting to this place because I've done.
And to be able to look back and be like, oh damn, I've already done level 1 and level 2. I'm on level 3 now. There's only one more level. And
really
now I know that this is actually the base, and now you're able to start. Now you're going from a cook to a chef. Where you're like, oh, okay, lower body ingredients. We're doing that now, and then spinal segmentation as its own separate ingredient. In the next recipe, we're just going to combine those 2 together. Now we've got more time to do other stuff for the legs, which will be progressed from what we're doing now, and we'll be able to then free up that time because we're doing all of that together at once. And now I'm improving balance and coordination to another progressed level with my economic efficiency and movement quality, because I'm having to integrate 2 major different skills at once, flexion and extension of the spine and locomotion of the legs, rather than having those 2 be 2 different skills we're practicing at different points. We're practicing those both together. But now here's the beauty of it. You're thinking, and this is my thought just now on this, we rewire the process, where we typically, the idea is to go proximal distal. Always start moving the spine first and then go to the shoulders and hips and then to the extremities and accessory movements or full body complex motor skills after that. Running, skipping, and we'll get back to skipping more. That's another thing I think would be really good for you. And we can easily make that, incorporate that into a part of the conditioning stimulus or part of your explosive plyometric, which is where I would start with it. Is we just start sending those fast motor down to that system again to get everything to co-contract and synchronize and start working in a more athletic, integrated way now that we've done a lot of the slow, isolated, loose, soft, full range of motion under progressive load kind of thing. Now let's actually start to use it in that way. Side subject here with this, we can take the idea of the concept of what we want to do is mobilize the spine, then the hips and the shoulders. Okay, so I had you mobilizing the hip first. Or I said I'm mobilizing the spine first. Now just for efficiency's sake, you could do this first here, or we know level 2 is just down here. So if we really want to focus on getting more out of the quad here, well then why don't we just stay here and do that at the same time? Now I'm getting an extra 2-3 minutes of this for extra credit, and then I don't necessarily need to sit here and do that next one because I've kind of low-key been doing it while I do my spine in all 3 directions, both ways.
Right.
You know, so you can hang out.
Still do the standing.
You can, but you wouldn't have to per se.
But the standing's so good for the balancing.
Correct, it's a whole nother thing. But you are doing the lunge matrix next, which is going to check all those balance, coordination, 3 planes of motion for the lower body boxes too. So more practice isn't worse for sure, but just thinking about it conceptually, that's how you could, oh, well, instead of like I got to do this exercise, then this one, then this one, conceptually I'm mobilizing my spine, and then next I'm mobilizing my quad. Well, I could just go half kneeling, elevate my foot, and mobilize my quad while I'm mobilizing my spine, and now 2 for 1, saving more time. Now I don't have to do this one because I'm actually doing it already anyway.
Cool.
You know?
Yeah.
And then maybe this is just your movement snack later in the day between clients.
Yeah.
And you hit that for 5 minutes each side, just as a, you know, brush your teeth after dinner, dry brush to just.
Is this thing hearing you say that?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, that's
something I'm going to need to be reminded.
That's the conceptual stuff of flossing. You know, it's like my Heather, dentist, she's like, if there's like one thing I could tell everybody, it's like brush your teeth after every meal, even if it's a dry brush. You don't even have to use toothpaste or go crazy. But she's like, just quickly brush the gunk off of your teeth after a meal. She's like, that alone, 2 seconds of just 30 seconds, whatever, 3 times a day, an extra 90 seconds, go in that ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure kind of thing. You're just keeping the shit off of them so it doesn't sit there and rot during the day. Or also brushing the teeth before you go to bed at night so that stuff on your teeth that doesn't, in a closed environment, grow and grow and grow while you're sleeping. You know, like those little things, like same thing for this and this, no different, you know, but thinking about that after you eat a gunky meal, aka you just do 2-3 massages and now you're overused and these are tight and these are long, and then it's like just 30 seconds of hitting this 5 times and like loading the neuromuscular, so everything gets that just quick little dry brush on to the next client. But on the mental reset, all the other well-being things you're going to get out of that, but just physiologically from that perspective of, you know, after you're done with the massage, you've been in hip flexion for the last 90 minutes. 5 of these. Hip extension, lean back. Okay, that's the nice thing about when you're here already. Now it's not one exercise or the other, it's just kind of blending them all together. You can come here and do your T-spine carves too. Okay? Same exact thing as the half kneeling, but I'm just getting more extra credit out of the quad by elevating the heel, creating more knee flexion, which is just going to pull on these ropes and give me more of a stretch here, especially when I push down into the back of the leg. So that just little conceptual stuff there of, I think rear foot elevated half kneeling is a big takeaway there. You know what works really well is a foam roller. Just stuff a foam roller under the contour of your, I want you just to feel what that feels like. The nice thing about the foam roller too is it's got more density and contour for the front of the ankle, so you can really push down into it and get quite a feedback from that, and also it feels nice on the ankle because of the contour there. So you get really, and don't lean back from the shoulders and rib cage. You want to increase the knee flexion, so you're leaning back from the femur bone. So pause. Instead of going back that way with the upper body, keep the upper body here and just lean back as a segment from the knee. So I want this knee to increase in the angle. That action. that action.
Oh God. Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay. Ah.
That.
Why was that so hard for my body?
Uh-huh.
Remember the.
Yeah, think like camel pose.
Yeah.
Camel pose is both loading down and increasing knee flexion while extending the spine. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just making sure that we're not getting it all here, that we're getting it down there. But again, what are you doing? Are you focusing on really just trying to mobilize the quad, or are you two birds, one stoning and getting a little spine in there at the same time? You know, there's nothing wrong in how you can do this position. The more time you spend in it and the more you noodle around and improv and come up with your own little mobilizations in this position, the more you'll be able to feel those tension lines.
As long as they're not doing that.
As long as you're not sagging into certain joints excessively. But if you're moving slow and controlled, do that too. It's fine. There's nothing wrong that you can do here, as long as you're just being intentional with your movement and breathing softly to expand and open the fascial lines. But it's all done regulatory as long as you're maintaining good breath and good intentional movement.
Whoa.
Beautiful. Isn't that nice when you go back like that? Because it increases the...
I'm glad I'm doing this after you said all that, though.
Yeah.
I would have been...
Yeah, walking a bit. But it even fires up, by having that last foot elevated, it even fires up the anterior line stretch more all the way up.
Wow.
Yeah, even up into the neck.
Oh. Okay. Wow, John, you're on fire today.
Get that other leg too, just to
Okay.
balance that out a little bit. So one last thing, just to take this concept all the way home, is the angle of that back leg. So at a point in time, the closer this knee is here, the more vertical that shin, the more vertical the shin, the more flexion of the knee, the more that angle closes, the more stretch on the quad. So just depending on you, I don't have a phone roller, but I've got this footstool, I've got this couch, but you're fucking in the middle of the desert, someone kidnapped you and dropped you off. Okay, you just knowing that it's the angles that you put your body in, not the implement you're using to put your body in that angle. And so we're just increasing the angle of knee flexion now. So now I'm getting more of a quad stretch. But I can still go through and play around here. Now I'm in front glute, front hamstring a little bit. Getting a little flexion in the spine. Now, the nice thing about this is the implement changes. So now I can actually put my arm and support my weight here, which is going to distribute the force differently. And it's way more quad belly, than it is high hip flexor because I've got that heel closer to my butt. That's the goal again at the point in time, is to get the heel in contact with the butt. But I get a little bit of hip flexion here, just barely. If you watch this, boom, you can see that subtle glute contraction. Dog poop gets me in full hip extension, and now, whoa, getting a massive quad stretch there. Okay, so if you want more quaddy, less spine, this is what you're working up to, because eventually we get rid of that half kneeling position. I put you in the full locomotion 3D, and then we do this to specifically hyper-target the quad hip flexor.
Engaged?
Off and on, contract, relax, PNF, PNF, pails, rails, okay? Try that, just to feel that feeling of what it feels like to have an accentuated knee flexion on the back leg. And you'll see then how that fires up. They really will get this aspect of the quad. Now you can kind of push away, lean forward, lean back, lean forward, lean back. You can have the hands on the bench behind you. You can add some twisting now because you've got the ability to support yourself.
Fuck you, I am not going to be a bent over old lady.
Okay. So I'm trying to have a leather pretty calm. Just gonna jump right on this.
You good?
Okay.
You little fireball. What do you want? Will you remember to text me the things I
Yes.
have to do?
Yes. Can you text me?
To remind, to
Yeah.
tell me the things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna go from this right into a call.
Will you, is Jocelyn going to let me out?
Oh yeah, I'll tell you. You might be able. Oh, that's pretty close. I was gonna say you could just